Welcome to the Mission First People Always podcast. We're glad you're here. And now our host, Dr. Mike Patterson.
Today, I'm excited to share my conversation with Dr. Tom Hanson. Tom's a sports psychologist, coach, and a prolific author who has had the opportunity to interview some of the greatest hitters of all time. Hall of Famers like Hank Aaron, Stan Musial, Rod Carew, Tony Oliva, and others about the importance of the mental aspects of the game. He applied what he learned as the director of performance enhancement for the New York Yankees, and he's consulted with teams throughout Major League Baseball, as well as businesses, coaching organizational leaders to great success. During our conversation today, I'm going to focus, Tom, on what it takes to be a top performer, not in professional baseball, but in the business world. So whether you're a baseball fan or not, this is going to be a great episode because we're all fans of top performance, and I'm glad you're here.
Welcome to the Mission First People Always podcast, where we talk about better business results, stronger teams, more successful careers, and happier lives. Along the way, we hope to bust some biases, build some bridges, and have some fun. We're glad you're here. And now, our host, Dr. Mike Patterson.
My guest today is sports psychologist and performance coach, Dr. Tom Hanson. He frees athletes, executives, and work teams to consistently perform at or near their best through his performance freedom and consistency coaching programs. Dr. Tom is a fixture in collegiate sports as well as Major League Baseball, having worked for organizations like the New York Yankees, the Texas Rangers, the Los Angeles Angels, and the Minnesota Twins organizations, as well as Skidmore College and Harvard University baseball and Florida State softball. His list of business clients include Microsoft, Verizon, and Pepperidge Farms, as well as many, many small businesses and other organizations. He's a prolific author, having written books about baseball, mental toughness, personal accountability, trust, and integrity. We're going to talk about all of those topics today, so let's meet Tom and jump into our conversation. Dr. Tom Hanson, welcome to the Mission First People Always podcast. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you very much, Mike. It's great to be here.
Well, I have a lot I want to talk with you about, but we're not going to talk about why my baseball career ended in high school.
All right.
And how the St. Louis Cardinals lost out on a tremendous young prospect 40 plus years ago. We're not going to talk about that.
Okay.
But
we could talk Stan Musial, though. I spent an hour interviewing Stan Musial about hitting. I'll work him in.
I hope we do. As a native of St. Louis, he was a little before my time as a player, but man, he is a hero in my hometown. And I got to meet him once briefly, and he was a very generous gentleman. So I'm a big fan. So we will talk about Stan. We will also talk about how some of the coaching and training you've done and you currently do with elite athletes is relevant to those of us who aren't elite athletes.
Myself included.
Yeah, for sure. My time, athletic time has passed, but I'm still trying to do good things for my clients inside organizations. And my listeners, I believe, are largely people who want to become better leaders. They want to build stronger teams. They want to elevate the team's performance. They want to do great things and take care of people. That's why it's called Mission First People Always. So that's what I'd like to talk with you about today.
Perfect. It's right in the wheelhouse that I've spent my career. So
excellent.
Let's go.
So one complaint I hear from time to time from managers, and I seem to have heard it more recently, let's say over the last 10 years or so, managers are concerned that their people are less committed than they were in the past. They're quick to jump from one job to the next. People don't stick around for a long time. They're even willing to take off in the middle of a project. They don't seem to have a strong desire to persist and see things through. What can leaders do in the face of this? Is there something we can do as leaders to increase commitment?
Yes, I think all that is true, and so it is a challenging environment, but it's hey, like when you face a really tough pitcher, it's like, well, what are you going to do? You're not going to give up. You're just going to find a way to get better and adapt to the situation. And so it really ups the game for a manager in terms of what he or she has to do to be effective themselves. So I'm sure you're familiar with the research on it, where it's like it's the relationship with the primary supervisor that really plays into whether a person stays or goes, and what kind of experience that they have. The overall environment, the culture, yes, is big, but it really plays out that in that relationship with their primary supervisor. So the first thing for that would be for the supervisor, the manager, boss, whatever it would be, is to do a great job with their own well-being, their own psychology, bringing their own A game to work on a consistent basis, because only then do you really have full access to your talent. To me, as a mental game coach, one way that I put what I do is help people have access to their talent. And so you've gotten to a leadership position, you've demonstrated some talent. And so now it's really a matter of can you bring that consistently yourself so that you're in the best possible position. I was a head coach. I was a professor and head coach at Skidmore College and through the 90s. And I was really stretched thin. As a full-time professor, I ended up getting tenure. And as a baseball coach, counted at one class. And all that to say, I was not really on top of my game. I was pretty frazzled and pretty running in what I would call a yellow light instead of a green light situation, inner traffic light. And so I really didn't forge the relationships with the players looking back that I would like to have, that I would think that I would do now. And so that it cost me because my head was more in doing and in the big picture of things of, okay, what's the plan? What has to happen? And then let's do this, do this, do this, and missing the heart piece. Think axiology. I have an assessment that looks at axiology. We can talk more depth if you want about that, but looks at there's three dimensions. There's a head, heart, and hands. And so the head is constant. Okay, what's the game plan? What has to get done? What are the goals? Okay, this, and what has to be, then the hands is what are we going to do? And then the heart is that interpersonal connection. And so my point is simply that the biggest thing would be to have your own act together so that you can not be like I was in the 90s. And have stuff handled enough that I can be quiet and say, okay, what's going on with that guy? Joe over there. Hey, Joe, got a minute. Let me touch base with you. And so that I only can do that if I have the bandwidth myself to do it. So then it'd be a matter of of clarity and speaking a language we talk about in our book, Who Will Do What by When. We certainly get into that whenever you want.
Well, you talk about, and I think it does come from that book that I've enjoyed as I've read it over the last couple of weeks, Who Will Do What by When. It's a business fable. It's easy to read. It's a good story. It's one of those entertaining but educational books that anybody can pick up and enjoy over the hour or two they have to read. I think you talk about commitment and commitment management there. What can, in addition to this idea of building better taking care of ourselves so that we can take care of our people and make sure those relational elements are solid and we're aware of what's going on in the people on our team, what else can we do to sort of elevate the level of commitment on our team? Is there a commitment management process that you teach or you could describe for us?
Yes, absolutely. And it starts with caring. So that was like my first response was connecting with what the person cares about. Find out what that person cares about. So then you can speak into that. So that I mentioned, I think it was Joe or something. Hey, Joe, come here. And you want to build a rapport, a relationship that you know what that person cares about so that you can speak into that. So that's the first thing and really where it starts. Then commitment management is a term my wife, Birgit Zucker Hanson, coined and it boils down to manage commitments, not people. So given the hard connection, then get commitments. And it's a missing in the work world. It was stunning to us and early on, it's the early 2000s, where I just leaving would work full time for the New York Yankees and got fired by George Steinbrenner. But so now we're starting to coach in the business world and thinking we'll do all this big, high level mission, vision, values, and this big picture coaching. And what we found was they just don't do a good job of executing the fundamentals of who will do what by when. I'll say, hey, have you ever been in a meeting where you were there for an hour and a half and then everyone left and then you don't know who is going to do what and by when? As a result, it's like, yeah, no, this morning. So it can be almost embarrassing in a way to say, well, that's what we teach. The commitment is I will do X by Y. There's lots of ways to carve it up, but in commitment management, we like commitment to a value or a principle. We do a lot of work in the VA, for example, and sort of committed to helping veterans. Great. But now what are you going to do for them by Wednesday at noon? That's the actionable commitment. And the formula is I will do X by Y. So who will do what by when? Well, I will do X by Y, where by Y is the time. And getting that level of clarity is essential. And it's vitally important. And that's what we realized was missing from so much in the business world. And again, as obvious as it seems, it just isn't common practice. I'll tie in Stan Musial real quick to make sure we get back to him. I said, well, what were you doing? He's a lifetime 331 hitter. He Hall of Fame, one of the tops in total bases, tops in RBIs, all-time hits. So successful for a long period of time, which is what we look for, not just in a baseball player, but in a business person. Okay, you can be good for a week, but can you be good for 20 years? How did you do that? So I said, what were you doing? And when you're in the batter's box, what were you doing? And he said, well, I always knew where the fat part of the bat was, and I wanted to put it on the ball. And Ph.D. boy is like, yeah, and he said it 4 more times that I only really got once I was transcribing the interview using a foot pedal, the way we used to transcribe things. And it's like, oh, I knew where the fat part of the bat is the best part, the sweet spot, the best part of the bat. So you want to take the best part and put it on the ball. And so I couldn't quite grasp the simplicity, the power of that simplicity. And the same Hank Aaron, all-time total base leader, home run guy, RBI guy. I mean, same thing, one of the most long time, top 5% every year for 23 years. So any salesperson or manager would take that. What were you doing, Mr. Aaron? He said, well, I wanted to put the fat part of the bat in the ball. So the same thing, some simple thing. And so the equivalent for a manager is I will do X by Y. It's like, really? That's what you're teaching and emphasizing? Yeah. Fat part of bat on ball worked for these two guys. So coming to that level of clarity is power. So if you can boil it down to, okay, who will do what by when? And then there's other parts to the model, which is a request. Hey, because Z is happening, will you do X by Y? And then there's 4 answers that you really ought to only accept. And then if you're going to not meet your deadline, you renegotiate a couple steps to do that. You missed the deadline as a cleanup. Okay, the person made a commitment to you and they didn't renegotiate or clean up. What do you say to them? It's called a complaint or a breakdown conversation. There's specific language to those, but at the same time, again, it's pretty straightforward. So far we're going to have your own act together so that you can extend out and really care and connect with what they care about, and then use really tight, specific language to get the kind of clarity that you can then manage. Because this manage commitments, not people, means, hey, Joe, my understanding was you said you'd do X by Y. Was that your understanding? And if he didn't commit to it, then you can't well, you have a request, but you can't expect it if he didn't have a clear commitment. So that gives you a sense of the bigger picture of it.
Yeah, I love that, and the excerpts from your interviews with those Hall of Fame greats put the fat part of the bat on the ball. It's doing the important, simple things consistently well. And sometimes we miss the basics as managers as we start thinking about vision and value stuff. We forget about the putting the bat on the ball. So I love that. Since
Hmm.
we're talking about Hall of Famers, let me ask you
Hmm.
the Ernie Banks question.
All right.
Now, why is it an Ernie Banks question? Well, because that great Chicago Cub would always say, "Let's play two," or at least that's what
Yes,
he is known for.
absolutely.
So, what is that the idea of the double header of life that you talk about, and how do you break down game one and game two? Talk us through that whole "let's play two" idea.
Right on. I love that. That's great. That's great. That's a great attitude that he had. He was a smiling, happy guy and loved doing it. And that'd be a big thing for to being an effective leader, effective manager is having that infectious attitude. And his love of it okay, let's play two. Game one of the doubleheader of life is the results game. You need to produce results i- to, win, get hits, whatever it is in the sports world and whatever you're responsible for as a manager or a leader, there's key metrics that have to be profitable. I mean, a business, if it's not profitable, then it doesn't stick around long, and then you have to go do it somewhere else. So game one is a results game. Are you making money? Do you have the toys you want? Do you have even the family? Anything really external is game one. Game two is the experience game. What is it like to be you? Is it fun? Are you having fun? Or do you feel burned out? Are you on kind of it's like, yeah, this is fantastic. I'm doing great. I'm winning game one and I love it. Or are you like, yeah, I've got money, but I thought winning would feel better than this. I thought it sort of, is this all there is? All that mean, it's like a lack of meaning. And I just find a lot of executives are splitting the doubleheader of life. And so they're playing 500 ball and going home having lost. Like, and your mom says, well, you won the first game. I know, but we lost the second. And you go home having lost. Our friend that we connected with, in college with, I played baseball there. We played a ton of doubleheaders in college, and taking a pair was a lot better than splitting that doubleheader. So that's what I look at. And essentially I'd say, well, I help people sweep the doubleheader of life and have it all, where it's like, yeah, I'm great results and I love it.
Well, that was gonna be my follow-up question. How often do you sit with executives? And I want you to tell the audience a bit about the competitive executive coaching program that you offer, because I think you do great work and I want people to know about your work. But do you find yourself with a lot of what the world would say, this is a successful person? They've got the great car, the big house, they got money in the bank, the position title is, awesome, but they don't feel good about it. They go home having lost the second game of the doubleheader. How do you meet these people, and what do you do for them when you do?
Yeah, absolutely. It's extremely common, probably getting more and more common as just everything speeds up. And even though we keep hearing, yeah, it's the journey, not the destination, we're really programmed early and often culturally into that it is these external things that will do it. Well, the key with and at the heart of the competitive executive program is understanding human design. And humans are the design as I see it. Everything I say is what I think, as opposed to it's the truth. So as I see it, information comes in through our senses. Particularly goes through Miggy or amygdala. If we were on a team with Johnny Amygdala, we'd call him Miggy. So for Miggy, goes to Miggy first, and it's, am I safe? And if yes, based on past experience, then you've got full access to your motor programs. If no, then it goes into a defense, fight, flight, or freeze, and there's a contraction. And so often we're seeing that, I'm seeing that executives, there's always some we're on alert. We're really designed, like animals are designed to, hey, go into survival mode. And then when it's over, it goes away. But in our world right now, it often just doesn't go away. We're always just on. So we're always below, at or below the Miggy line, which is where we get much more stress, much more contraction, much more limited scope in our thinking. If you think of it that way, I've mentioned a traffic light. A green light, you have an experience and it's a positive and you're feeling really good. Yellow, it's a little rattled. Red, more danger, is a perception of threat. And so what goes with that is like there's very few options that are available. The menu of options, of choices in your life are really narrow in the red, when you're in the red light. So like a quarterback throws an interception. It's like, dude, how could you throw that? The guy was right there. It's like, well, he was about to get crushed by a 300-pound guy. And so he doesn't think as well. And managers and leaders are the same. When we're stressed, we don't think as well. And so getting into a green light, so back on my program, I want people, one, to understand human design, and then to get really good at being green. Because when you're in a green light mode, you are able to draw from all over so much more information. I think of it as a big mind, and deliberately wanting to be in a state. I was coaching a guy yesterday. He's a really high-end softball coach. And we had a tremendous conversation. We were really both in that highly creative space and dancing. And I came up with things that I write down. I was like, whoa, that was really great. And he would come up with stuff because we were both feeling very safe with each other in the relationship. And he's also getting information. It's almost drawing it from the universe or drawing it from your intuition, creating things, and then being able to do that deliberately rather than have it be a random event that you luck into. It's really what the program's about. It's like, okay, well, how do I get in that state where I'm loving it all the time and winning game two? And game two isn't even so dependent on game one, such that you're able to, like, you know what? I love my life. That's, in the end, that's what I'm playing for with someone. Is like, I freaking love being me. And I hope you love being you. When I was with the Yankees, that was what I got from Derek Jeter, is that he loved being Derek Jeter. And you could say, well, okay, that doesn't seem that hard. But he was Derek Jeter in large part because of that, his perspective on himself, more so than as a result of it. So that was part of his deal, was like, hey, I love being me. It's not that I said, well, I didn't get, hey, I'm better than you. I hope you love being you. Because to me, the more pressure, in fact, I asked him, how do you deal with the pressure of the postseason? He said, well, really see it that way. It's like Little League. And I had seen him, it was a longer story, but I had seen him a year before on TV up to bat late in the game. And I said, geez, he looks like a little leaguer just waggling around. And then here it is. I actually sit with him. How do you deal with that? And he said, it's just like Little League. And I said, well, that's what you look like, with all due respect. You look like a little leaguer having fun. And so that's a lens thing. So the human design is X is an outside thing, goes into your lens, and it's how you perceive it is your experience. So there's X, and then there's your experience that is really the key, because we all know, there'd be people that are multimillionaires that are suicidal, and people who are dirt poor, literally, who are happy as clams. That's a lens thing. It isn't the X, it's the lens. So I'm considering a book called It Depends on the Lens. And so the coaching program is mostly about lens crafting. Got different tools a lot of different tools to craft and change someone's lens so that they habitually see it as fun. Because you can't just say, hey, Derek Jeter said to go have fun, so just go have fun. Well, that's a nice idea, but it's hard if your lens sees the situation as a threat. And so it's like that. And then it's like, okay, well, and then also be able to perform well when you don't feel great. So how do I deliberately feel good, craft that lens so I've got this great Ernie Banks-like attitude? Like, I didn't work with Derek Jeter. He had that attitude. He had that lens. But that's what I do, is help people craft a lens that help them to be the Derek Jeter, the Tom Brady, the Ernie Banks, whoever you'd like to be. the best version of yourself, it's going to be through that by lens crafting, and then being, here's what I do, whether I feel good or not, because I need to execute, even on a day I don't have my A game.
Tom, I know you spent some time with Pete Rose. He has always been a fascinating figure to me. I don't know that I figured out Pete Rose. Did you validate these ideas with Pete? What did you learn from spending time with the great Pete Rose?
Right. So Pete Rose, more hits than anybody. So even surpassing these other guys. So it's like, how did you do that? That's how I got a Ph.D. And how did you do that was my basic question. And so I said, I want to talk to you about the mental aspects of hitting. What would you talk to me about? He said, you're talking to the wrong guy. I go, dude, I flew down from New York to Boca Raton, and now you're telling me. But I did end up with an hour and a half with him. And he said, because it's just see-ball, hit ball. See-ball, hit ball. That's it. Next. And so again, it was this simplicity. And I think the thing with him that struck me is that there are different kinds of genius. Different people are genius in these different domains. And his was in hitting. And my assessment, and I'm just only hesitating because I don't want it to sound bad in any way. He just didn't think wasn't that much in his field. He was able to keep it that simple. It was easy. Most people, like myself, certainly, the more I learn, I think my biggest challenge is I overthink things. And let's do this and read this book. And then I'd like to do this, but let me read more. He wasn't like that. And what almost any time a hitter gets in trouble, and really an executive, they're going to have drifted from simplicity. Simple wins, another potential book title for simple wins. That see-ball, hit ball, bad part of bat on ball. He just didn't have that much other we talked about like two other topics, like gambling and one other one, and females, and it was like, if you can keep focus, like focus is the most important performance variable. It's more important than confidence. And so he was able to keep his focus. And it was also, though, now that I say that, he loved it. He loved it. He said, I just love the battle between the pitcher and the hitter. And if I'm 0 for 4, I'm on deck. Most guys, this is him talking, don't want that fifth at bat. Nobody wants to go 0 for 5. They would rather just go 0 for 4. He said, I wanted that at bat. I wanted, because I just love the battle. So it's back on our themes of love, caring, and then a tight focus on something really clear and simple.
So I've got to ask, I've got to ask this follow-up, Tom. So did that simple, focused approach make Pete a better manager when he was managing? It helped him as a player. Did it help him as a manager?
I don't think so. I think to manage, you need a wider scope than my sense of what he was able to do. And I think he would manage because he'd be still closer to hitting. I didn't have a sense that really played to his strength.
Interesting. Let's switch gears because I want to hear your thoughts on this. I want you to explain it to me and the audience. I was hanging out with a friend of mine not too long ago, and he shared, and I didn't really know this about him, but he was really experiencing some heavy duty anxiety, and he was struggling with it. And I said, what are you doing about it? Are you getting some help? And he said, yeah, I'm seeing this counselor. She's really good. And she's taught me something about this tapping technique. And then he tried to explain it to me, and I didn't get it. But he said, it's really helping me. So I think you teach the tapping technique as well.
Yep.
So I'd love you to, explain it to us.
Okay. So I laughed at it and hung up with the actual founder, like the guy that came up with the main thing, Gary Craig, tapping, EFT. I was on a call with him and I hung up and laughing. It wasn't a one-on-one call. It was a group call. And then several weeks later, a guy came up to me and said he does it. And I kind of chuckled at him. And he said, well, then you haven't done it. I go, okay. All right, man, I'll try it. And so I'm sitting there in Atlanta reading a book about it, reading the manual, and a mom came up, "Can you help my son?" Short version, it's like, hey, what are you feeling? Frustration, anger. Hey, 0 to 10, how strong? 7. And then I tap on him, and it goes in about 40 seconds, it was down to a 4. Another 20, 30 seconds, it was gone. And from then on, I've been a tapper. That's like 2003. And if you said, well, what's your best tool after going into sports psychology and starting graduate school in 1985? What's the best tool? Tapping. Also, Haven, which is a cousin of it, but tapping is literally tapping with your fingers on different acupressure points on your body. The first one, you could do this. You could take a deep breath in, listener, and think of something that's causing you stress. Or, yeah, when you focus on it, it creates some negative emotion. Ideal would be a particular thing, like a report that you didn't do or that's due, or a particular thing rather than just stress generally, because it's best when it's aimed at something. A typical one would be a past experience that when you think of it's a bummer. It kicks up motion, and generally the more, the better. So then what you do is you 0 to 10, how strong is that? Do you have anything in mind? You don't even have to say what it is. Do you have can you generate, Mike, some negative feeling thinking about something?
Yes. I
All right.
will work to do that. I'm generally in a good place.
Nice.
In my second game of the doubleheader, I'm doing really well.
Beautiful.
But I'll imagine something here with you.
Okay, yeah, and that's the thing, is to, like, what you focus on, you feel. So focus on something now. It should be easy for a lot of us to come up with something that does that. So then what you'd literally do is tap on the top of your head as if patting a dog. Pop, 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 hard enough that you feel. It's not so hard that you hurt yourself. And then the second spot is on the inside edge of your eyebrow. So you're on your eyebrow, but then slide in toward the center of your eyebrow. And it's this index and middle finger here, bump, 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 bump. And then the side of your eye is immediately to the side of your eye. You're on that occipital bone. Feel the edge of your bone on the side of your eye. And then under your eye, you're still on that same bone, but now you're straight below your pupil. Bump, 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 bump. And then we'll go a shortcut, which is to go under your collarbone. And you're under your collarbone up against your sternum, but not touching the sternum. So you're in that corner under your collarbone, not against your sternum. Bump, 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 bump. And the last one is under your arm. If you have a bra on, it's on your bra strap. If you don't, it's where it would be.
Okay.
And
I'm not wearing a bra today, Tom.
Okay, good. Because there'd be an extra charge for that. But so you go top of your head, bump, 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 and then eyebrow, and then side of the eye, bump, 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 and under the eye, under the collarbone, and under your arm. And I'll typically do 3 laps like that. We've done 2 tap laps now. And then I would go to a positive. I choose to be calm and confident as you tap on top of your head, eyebrow, side of your eye, under your collarbone, and under your arm. So, and then usually another lap. I usually go 3 focused on the negative, and then 2 on a positive. And then you take a breath, exhale, let that breath go. And then you check in on your thing, whatever you were focused on. That's your X. If you remember I call it my mental mechanics model. X goes into the lens, and then you have an experience. So we're doing some lens crafting here, and you check on that memory now. And if it was a 7, what out of 10, what is it now? If it was, a 2 or 3, what is it now? And generally it will come down, although sometimes it doesn't. If it goes up, I actually like that, because then we've uncovered something deeper that to clear. And like if your friend is like, he's looking more at core issues, so you drill down. So what we just did would be sort of superficial, and then we'd be looking for ways to get down deeper. And the question that I would ask if I was you is like, well, how is this working? Basically, there's tons of research. There's way over 100 studies, peer-reviewed studies on what's going on here. And they find massive reduction in cortisol, for example, with it. I've seen my own blood. I had a blood sample, look at it under a microscope, and then tap, and then see the blood flow different. It was pretty freaky. But That's the common thing, but it's memory reconstellation. So you call up a memory and you pull it up. And so Miggy's looking at it and it's like, remember this? Yeah, it was horrible. I made this bad throw or this boss yelled at me. And so you work a particular memory, you call up this memory, and then the tapping is sending positive signals, delta wave signals going into your amygdala to the whole, there's more to it than the amygdala, but we'll keep it simple. Going in and it's saying it's okay. So Miggy doesn't speak English, so it speaks vibration. And so this vibration is coming in and the actual spot does matter. The research just shows that it's not just tapping or it's not just distracting you. So you call up this memory and it's essentially like editing a Word document. The document comes up and now the memory comes up and now you're saying, hey, remember this? Yeah, it's okay. This? Yeah, it's okay. The tapping is saying it's okay. And then the memory shifts. How the memory occurs to you will shift. And then it's like back on the Word document, it's like, then you put it away as an edited thing. Like, it wasn't that bad. It's not that I'm glad that I lost that game or glad that I got in that accident, but it doesn't bother me. The process is moving everything the thing from trauma to wisdom so that it doesn't trigger me anymore when I think of it, consciously or unconsciously. I'm not necessarily happy about it, but it doesn't trigger me. So that's where, like a PTSD, work a lot with guys who throwing problem. They had something go wrong while they were throwing, and now they think throwing is dangerous. Or it could be when I backed my car up into something, or anything that could be traumatizing. It gets stuck. Miggy's job is to keep you safe, so he's going to keep you safe, or she, and by saying, "Don't do that again." Here's another relationship. Here's another whatever might be there. Don't go there. Don't throw the ball again. And so it's just keeping you safe. So we have to retrain Miggy to say it's safe to throw the ball to the pitcher, because it actually is. He's just taken this data. And so the tapping that's what I mean by memory reconstellation. It's changing the way you remember something so that you see it as safe and not as a threat.
Wow. That's a
How
great
about that?
that's a great explanation, Tom. And you've come a long way from hanging up on the guy to your current level of expertise and application. So I love
Indeed.
that. Thank you for
Indeed.
that.
You're welcome.
You talk a lot about playing big. In fact, you wrote a book called Play Big. And that's, I don't know if that's your most popular book. You've written several books, but that's got to be one of your best sellers.
Mhm.
And then you talk about playing with ease. How do those two ideas apply to managers, people who are in organizations trying to perform at their best?
Well, we talked, like maybe even just before we started, like performance freedom. Having a sense of freedom means you're free to run your motor programs. You're free without contraction, because Miggy's our prime directive over the millennia as humans. We're here because our ancestors were wired for safety. The guys that went running naked through the woods yelling didn't come back and mate. So we're really designed for safety. And so performance freedom, though, comes when we feel free to move and say things without constraint. Google had a thing where they studied their highest performance teams, and the one variable that predicted explained the most variance in a high performance team was psychological safety. Did someone feel safe to say, those O-rings are not going to work because it froze? Is somebody able to say, I don't think this is going to work because of this, or I think this would be a better idea, or I totally disagree with you, Mr. Zuckerberg, because this? Are they free to say that and have the information flying back and forth rather than really constrained? We've all sat in meetings and just thought, well, this is not going to work, but I'm not going to say it. There's no safety there. You don't feel safe to say it. So we perform best when we feel free. A shortstop, you don't want him playing to not make an error. You want him to play great. Go get the ball. Focus on what you want, not to what you want to avoid. And so for a manager, again, I'd circle back to being grounded, being in a green light. And that's going to may or may not mean you work through certain things, but getting the clarity of like, whoa, this is who I want to be. And having that sense of freedom is what, again, my coaching's about. It's like, how do we free you to be free at the higher levels? I can be free in a bullpen, but get out between the lines and contraction. Miggy says danger, danger. And the same for a manager. Oh, I have these ideas, but then I get in a meeting and I don't raise my hand because I'm afraid. And I'm not saying that you should raise your hand. I'm saying that's why you want to create whoever's in your space, you want to create that at you and below. You can't always control that. So that's why I can't say, just say whatever you think. I'm not saying that because it really might be a foolish thing to do, unfortunately. But that's the game to play. When you think of an athlete playing great, freedom. When you think of someone creating something, there's a sense of freedom. And so in a nutshell, it's really liberating people to win that game too. And it's like, I freaking love this. This is great. Is what it's about.
I can't believe how quickly our time has gone here, Tom. There's so much more I want to talk about. I wanted to talk about the yips and wanted your advice on my golf game and all sorts of things. But our time is gone. So I want to end with my traditional final question to my guests. It's our tradition here on the Mission First People Always podcast that the last question I offer each guest is this: can you give our listeners one thing that they can begin doing right now or first thing in the morning or as soon as they hear this that will help them become a better leader? What would your one thing be for my audience?
Right now, I will go with morning routine. I've really upped my game lately on it. And it's one of those ongoing things for me. Like, oh my gosh, I've been telling people XYZ for 30 years. And now I understand what I'm even saying. I've really upped my game. So I would have something that you get up and do physically, work out for yourself, physical, and then sitting down, journal, or sitting down, brag book, like here's things I'm proud of, or grateful is always good. And then here's the ninja one that might be a little bit different is gratitude in advance. So gratitude in advance for things that you don't yet have. So have something that you get up. It's like, I call it wake up and win. Wake up and win. You want to have a glass of water. Here's my routine. I'm all about, like you'd see in Play Big, the number 21. Just got into it. Roberto Clemente was a favorite player of mine. I wore 21, and now both my kids wear number 21 in baseball and volleyball. And it's like the family number. So I have 21 squats. I have 21, jackknifey up, down, dog thing, 21 ab thing. So I make that. And then I've got I'm journaling at an elite level, at least for me right now. And it's really been great there's prompts. And these are what I help coach people to help develop this so that you've got momentum before you leave the house. You're already winning and feeling like you're winning. So you're already winning the double header before you walk out of the house. Now, it might all blow up on the way to work, but it really accrues over time so that you end up crafting your lens. You spend more time in that green zone. So you deliberately get green. I could have said just that, but that whole morning routine.
I love the idea of waking up and win. Wake up and win. I love that idea. Friends, we've been talking with sports psychologist and executive coach, Dr. Tom Hanson, and all of his contact information is going to be in our show notes. He's got a website. He'll let you email him. We might even have his phone number in there if you wanted to give him a
Sure.
call. He does great work. If you're interested in his books, they're all for sale on Amazon. Whether your kid's a baseball player, you're a baseball player or not, this is the man that can help you. So I encourage you to, if you've enjoyed this conversation, and I know I have, if you've enjoyed this conversation, you found it valuable, tell somebody. Encourage them to listen, subscribe to the podcast. I would also appreciate if you, the listener, would go online and leave us a review, because that's how people find us. So the big idea behind my podcast and my books and all of my work is that if we have a righteous mission, stay focused on it. Get the right people on board to help you accomplish that mission and take care of them. And we've talked about that here today. You're in the best position to succeed and even do something great if you do those things. And I believe that you and your team can be great. Tom, thanks for being a great guest. Until next
welcome.
time, do great things.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you want to create a stronger, more people-centric and empowered culture for your organization, visit drmikepatterson.com.